the progress being made by the Galactic Federation of Planets and Silver Legion in understanding the Archons and in progress in eliminating them from our universe?
Eliminating them from our universe is going to take a long, long time. It's not something we can do overnight. We're talking about something the size and scale of a universe that is affected by the presence of these beings. In terms of understanding them, we understand them well enough. We understand their origins, we understand what they are, and most importantly, we understand how to destroy them.
What mode of transportation will be used after the transition if our current automobiles stop working?
There will be multiple different types of transportation. From what I understand, the entire public transportation infrastructure is going to be rebuilt, and so will, in time, everybody will be given the opportunity to have their own scout craft, and there will be personal vehicles as well that will be made, to operate in 40 with technology that will be, like...
The emphasis is going to be on ensuring that there's public transportation first, and it will be free, so no more bus fare. I say after I just bought my month's bus ticket. Yeah, I take the bus.
The 12-strand DNA being turned off. When was it turned off, and will it return during the transition?
Yes, it will return during the transition. It was turned off roughly about 25,000 years ago, give or take. This is done by the Anunnaki, and also it was also part of the whole thing being done by the Draco. It was to institute extra control methods, and was done gradually over time, not a all-at-once kind of thing. And also they took, we used to have 48 chromosomes. They took the last 2 chromosomes and smashed them together and smashed them into the 46th chromosome. And a lot of what mainstream geneticists, scientists, all that are saying is junk DNA. It's not junk DNA. It's all the DNA memories and the genetics from our predecessors and progenitor races, and those extra 10 strands of DNA. And it's all going to return and be reactivated. And I think some of it already is, but the majority of it will return and be reactivated with the transition.
Also, you don't need to go to anyone and give them money for them to reactivate your DNA or activate your DNA for you. Anybody who's offering to do this for you is probably doing more harm than help. It will happen naturally. You don't need to go pay for it.
When 4D happens, will we need any type of monetary stash to start off with, or is the whole money thing unnecessary for our survival and moving forward?
Well, we'll put it this way. As has been stated by us, as has been stated by Tolek, as has been stated by others, the financial system is going to take a while to transition. You can bet that it will be different immediately off the bat, but we probably won't be doing away with the financial system on this planet for at least, 4 to 10 years, I guess you could say is a conservative estimate.
Yeah.
Until the infrastructure's in place to...
Exactly.
It's
right,
not,
and not only it's not only the infrastructure, but people have to learn how to trade versus having the middleman money, and how to properly value things, because
right now the valuation of everything on this planet is completely effed up. Things that are exchanged in return for cultural goods might include, maybe a good story, maybe a cultural good from someplace else that the person hasn't seen, maybe some food that doesn't replicate well, because not all foods replicate well, wines and beverages that have been fermented or produced by bacteria or other organisms don't ferment well, don't replicate well. because the fermentation process requires life, and replicators cannot reproduce life. So anything grown, anything processed by a living being, these things are valued.
I can't forget every time my stellar cartographer crewmate, his face lights up, and I hand him a bottle of Takarian ale, and he just goes, "Oh my God, you got one!"
Yeah, Admiral Mander has a soft spot for wine. And here's another thing: most people don't intoxicate easily, so you don't see alcoholism, you don't see dependency on substances and chemicals. It just doesn't happen among us. So, they're perfectly acceptable gifts.
Do real dragons breathe fire, or is it all a myth? Are you able to say how the fire is produced?
My species also tends to this really, really frickin' huge, interesting diets, and our digestive processes produce a lot of waste heat. Well, waste plasma, which we can vent conveniently over people who annoy us.
Is it true that the sea used to be fresh water and not salt?
Yes.
Yes.
Any idea of the timeline of that?
No, I don't really know the timeline on that.
From what I understand is roughly about 25,000 years ago, they started the process of salting the oceans. It was done gradually over a lengthy time in the instance that you control the water on a planet, you control the population. It was another control method.
And that was done by?
The reptoids.
Over the next few months and up to the point of ascension, will there be more or less danger for people living in tall buildings rather than people living in a one-story house? I am referring to the chance of earthquakes and the possibility that most building structures may not completely transfer into the fourth dimension.
Near as I know, that one place is as safe as any other.
Yeah.
It has been mentioned that transitioning to 4D is a gradual process, and that process is happening now until the moment of ascension. Are there any physical 3D changes that we can observe taking place right now?
There have been, yeah. The shifting of the poles, both magnetic and physical, the earthquakes, the weird weather.
Did prehistoric matriarchy really exist? If so, what caused it to rise and what caused it to fall?
In those dark ages after the fall of Atlantis, yes, there were matriarchal societies. I don't know if matriarchy as a general way of doing things ever really happened on this planet in the high-tech societies that came before, because those had a tendency to be very egalitarian.
The Cabal Illuminati began as a few bloodline families and expanded over the centuries. What is their relationship to or with the reptoids? And
most of these
bloodlines,
they're descended from reptoids. They're hybrids. Most of these bloodlines come out of specially selected families that were selected by the reptoids, genetically modified and interbred within. And this is part of the reason why there is such a cabal focus on genetics and family and whether or not somebody is a legitimate heir and whatnot. And this all has to do with the blood quotient, the reptoid blood quotient. Those who have higher reptoid genetic percentages are permitted higher and higher ranks. Those with lower percentages are basically stuck being grunts and minions. But it all comes down to who your family is, and it's a very convoluted interbreeding system. You don't see natural marriages in bloodlines like that.
unless you've got an escapee.
And,
Everything is controlled.
Yeah, and beyond that, like you have the hybrids, like which Snap mentioned, and the bloodline families, and then above that, the Draco and the Hydras are like the overseers. They're the management, I guess if you could call it, for the next layer up for the whole control system.
What can you tell us about President Obama? Does he have any negative alien influences? If so, please explain the extent of his negative influences.
Oh, you really want the whole thing? Well,
Yep.
We tend to get hung up when we talk about this, but we'll give it a shot. For one, he is not a genuine human being. There is a genuine human Obama who is currently in some kind of cryostasis tank somewhere. The thing you see up there on the podium making mouth noises is a clone.
And clones do not have souls. They're like automations. They're like robots. We generally call them biological robots because they are biological and organic, but they are no different than like an android or a robot. They're just very sophisticated and advanced, and they don't have souls.
As to the extent of his negative influences, well, that really depends who's holding the leash today. It does change hands.
Is Bush one of them?
One of the leash holders? Bush is also a clone.
Yes. The Bushes
Clone can't manage a clone.
The Bushes are clones. The Obamas are clones. Henry Kissinger is a clone. The Clintons are clones. Netanyahu and Romney are clones.
Kim Jong-un is a clone.
Yeah. The former president of Iran is a clone. Like,
Okay.
there's a clone, there's a clone, there's a clone, there's a clone. Turn around, oh, there's even another clone.
You know who isn't a clone? Putin.
Yeah.
He's not a clone.
How does a regular, everyday, normal person tell who is a clone and who is not a clone?
Well, watch for the blips in programming for the most part. Clones, when they're asked something that doesn't fit into their script, they have troubles with it. Serious trouble. Sometimes it's quite hilarious, actually.
Yeah, like when they also
So watch
do
how
the
they
fails.
deal with the unexpected.
Yeah, and then also for those that are capable of seeing the auras, a normal human being or normal sentient being, let's put it that way, will have a full aura around their entire body. With clones, they only have an auric glow around the top of their head, and usually just the very top of their head. This is just because of the varying way that they work. And I mean, there's been some broadcasts I've seen where there's this one, I don't remember the name of the senator, but there was a senator that was killed, and they actually used a hologram in multiple different news broadcasts post the time that he had been killed, and there's video on YouTube of where they caught a couple of the glitches in the hologram, and it was pretty interesting and educational. They've got holograms that can look 3D physical